Hi everyone. Hope everyone's doing all right in these extraordinary, bizarre, surreal times that we find ourselves in. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now. We all face this pandemic, um, and I know that's affecting everyone across the entire world in so many different ways, really. Um, but I guess what I wanted to focus on today was the emotion of fear, uh, you know, and panic. 'Cause that really seems to be a big thing that's been pushed up for people. What is the nature of fear? Um, well, if we look back at our evolutionary roots in the animal kingdom, fear was there to um, keep us alive, basically. If fear arose in us, it meant that a predator was close by, or there was some threat in our environment. Fears are um, our personal alarm system, really. It's trying to keep us alive. Um, so, of course, with this pandemic that's come up, it's understandable that people would be afraid. There is a literal threat of death for some people, for vulnerable um, vulnerable people in our society. So that's understandable. Um, but there's lots of other things people are afraid of right now as well. People are afraid of running out of food, out of money. People are afraid of losing loved ones, jobs. Um, but people are afraid of all sorts of things right now. And it's it's difficult to be with fear. Um, but just remember, fear's trying to keep us safe. It's a biological mechanism that we've kept on from the animal kingdom. Uh, I'm sure some people wish that fight or flight response wasn't there anymore because it can it can send us into a right tizzy at times. Um, but it's how do we stay present with it? How do we stay calm and rooted like a solid tree when these winds, these chaotic winds of panic blow up in us? How do we stay rooted as a mindful tree and not get blown away by these chaotic fear winds? Because left to its own devices, fear can rise up into our mind. And if our mind gets hold of this emotion, it starts creating stories and rumours as to why we're feeling this way. And I understand there's a lot of genuine reasons to be afraid right now. And I'm not negating that at all. Um, but I'm just highlighting that fear, that the mind can sort of create stories to explain why we're feeling, and has the tendency to exaggerate or fear the worst or imagine all of these scenarios that might never happen. And that's how anxiety is created. It's sort of um, our imagination creating um, imagined predators in our environment, imagined threats. Um, and a lot of what we're afraid of in life isn't actually real. Um, it is our imagination sort of working against us. I read a quote once that saying anxiety is a misuse of imagination, and it can be a vicious cycle that our worrisome thoughts can make us feel panicked, and our panic and our fear can sort of feed our worrisome thoughts. It's how do we break that cycle? How do we stay present with what is? Um, how do we try and stay calm and yet at the same time honor the fear that's come up? How do we sort of hold that frightened child or that frightened animal that it keeps getting triggered by what's going on in the world? How do we sort of embrace our frightened child as a calm and responsible and loving parent? How do we hold space for that child and so that we can soothe it in our arms? And that, I think the way to do that is to sort of become a mindful witness for our thoughts and our emotions and all of these sensations that are passing through us. We don't want to be drowning in the emotion. We don't want to be overwhelmed and crushed by what's passing through us. But at the same time, we don't want to be so distant from our emotions that we don't feel anything at all. We don't want to repress our feeling selves, because they're an essential part of who we are. All our emotions are trying to tell us something. So there's a sort of middle ground we can find, where we can become a mindful witness to everything that's passing through us. We can become like a rooted tree on a riverbank, calmly watching the thought stream, the river of emotion that's passing by us. And this solid rooted tree on the riverbank doesn't get swept off in those thought currents because it's solid, it's centered, it's rooted, and it's a mindful observer to all the thoughts and emotions passing through. And how do we become the space through which these sensations, this energy in motion can move through us without getting swept off in the process? And, there's lots of ways to sort of do this, to cultivate presence and mindfulness. I'll suggest a few here. Meditation can help. Things like yoga and movement practices as well, like 5 rhythms. That's like an expressive movement practice to help shift emotions and stuck energy in you. There's lots of different ways to sort of cultivate this mindful awareness, this sort of presence where we can hold space for emotions like fear, which can help. And I think just simply noticing as well what's going on inside you when you get into the habit of mindfully noticing your inner landscape, you become more familiar with what it is. You become more familiar with your triggers, and the more you meet certain emotions, the easier it becomes to sort of hold space for them. And fear, in particular, it can be difficult to deal with. I know that for myself. I think what I've found is it helps to stay as grounded as you can in the body. So, as I've said about being a rooted tree, find ways to ground, to connect with the earth, make sure your energetic roots are growing down. Otherwise, for fear, the tornado of fear will just carry you into your mind, and you'll be creating all sorts of scenarios. And it's so difficult. It's to just allow fear to be in the body, without it rising into the mind and creating stories. It's difficult to just like let your body sort of shake. A frightened animal in the wild, its body will just shake. And that's its way of dispelling this nervous energy. And we too can do that if we just allow fear to be, if we're present with fear, just allow our bodies to shake like an earthquake. We can just be with a raw emotion rather than our mind narrativizing what's going on. And speaking of shaking, there's actually a practice called shaking, which might actually help. Basically, you just stand there on the spot, and you just start shaking all of your limbs, starting with your hands, your arms, your legs, your head. Just allow all your limbs to shake. Just doing that for several minutes, you can sort of shake off all of these heavy, stuck emotions in your body, and it's like leaves falling from a tree. You can really shake this stuff off. It's one of those practices I always forget about. And I've reminded myself by telling you, shaking. It's a good tool actually. Oh, and with shaking as well, try to keep the knees loose and bent while you're doing it, as that prevents the energy getting stuck, and it allows stuff to get released through your feet. That traps energy. So yeah, that's a little bit about fear. I hope some of that helps. And I hope you all manage to stay calm and centered during this time as best you can, but also know that it's totally okay you if you're afraid of what's going on, or you feel that fear's been triggered in you. It's just your body's way of trying to keep you safe. you know, on a primal level, that there's this anxiety at the moment that our fears telling us like you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, and they say the root cause of all anxiety is fear of death. It's the fear of this individual self being destroyed. So our fear is trying to preserve us. It's trying to keep. It's a form of self-preservation. Um, so I think that helps to know that. It helps to know the purpose, the evolutionary purpose of what our fear is, and how it's trying to help us. Um, yeah, it's good to know that, and try and invite it in as a friend when it does visit. As annoying as it can be at times, or as difficult as it can be, if it sends us into a tizzy. Yeah. But anyway, I hope this helps. And I wish you all well during this surreal time. Um, I wish you all, yeah, I wish you all good health and sanity and calm and peace with whatever you might be facing right now. And yeah, yeah, I send you all of my blessings and good wishes.